welcome you to this incredible announcement. So, I'm Nicole Tsong, work-life balance coach, and I wanted to share with you how we got to the place where I'm sharing this awesome, exciting news with you. So, I love to always listen in on what's going on for my clients and my overworked perfectionists and what they're struggling with. And what I was hearing consistently over and over again is that you struggle with boundaries in general, and in particular, boundaries with work. And this is true of the women I see, whether they're in a corporate setting or they're in a setting with a lot of others. Also, people who freelance can also be in the struggle with boundaries. And so this is a consistent thing I've been seeing over and over again. Whenever I'm hearing repeatedly from the women that I work with that something is going on for them, that is when I start to say, okay, let's take a deeper look. How can we start to support and look at it and look really at what's going on for any of you and how that started and how do we start to make some change and how do we start to make some shifts? So truly, this is what we're looking at today. And I'm so excited to be able to share with you what is going to change, what I'm here to teach you about, to share with you more about really specific to this topic. So what I was seeing for so many of my women, and this is what happens with work boundaries in particular, is there's a lot loaded into your job. There's people that you want to keep happy, like your boss. There's coworkers who also might have expectations or requests or things for you that might feel a little bit challenging. And then if you're a really busy environment, there also can be other people who are, maybe not your boss, but somebody adjacent who would want you to work on a project. And then there's also some of my clients who are the bosses themselves, and then they struggle with how do they set their own boundaries for themselves while they're also asking their teams to work many hours or work on big projects. So there's a lot of different facets to boundaries at work in particular. And there's a lot of things on the line: your salary, your reputation, how your own personal understanding and appreciation for what you're doing. So when you're really looking at all of these pieces, boundaries become a really big, overwhelming issue for so many people. And if what I'm resonating, if what I am saying resonates with you, pop it into the chat and let me know specifically what it is that you struggle with when it does come to boundaries at work, because that is really the big place for so many people. And what can happen is if you're already overworked and you're already feeling really pretty tired and you're still working 2 or 3 nights a week, you're answering emails from bosses or from coworkers or your team, and you're checking your email when you're on vacation, despite your best intentions to actually log off and really sign off for that time so you can actually rest and restore yourself. And then what happens is you are overworked, you get more exhausted, and this cycle continues, and your ability and your capacity to set boundaries that would give you the space and the time to work on all of these things really starts to go away. So that's what I see occurring over and over again. And then it just becomes easier. You're like, you know what? It's just easier. I'm just going to work for an hour tonight. It's easier than trying to set the boundary of not working for an hour. Like, it'll just be easier if I get this project done. It'll just be easier if I take care of this email, or if I take care of this thing that's sort of sitting on the back of my mind, than it is to set that boundary. It's easier to just check my email on vacation and make sure that nothing blew up while I was gone. And it's easier to just say, hey, just text me if you need me in case of emergency. And rather than saying no, or rather than even starting to say that doesn't actually work for me, and starting to set some boundaries that do work for you. We've got Gwen here saying, yeah, you're dealing with this, having a hard time to introduce a boundary so that you can create something new for yourself. And this is another thing that happened too. So not only do this boundaries at work is sort of what I would consider a problem that's universal for so many of us. And then COVID happened. And what did you do? Maybe you no longer had your commute. What did you do at that time? You probably worked more. Most people that I know use that time that they commuted instead, got on their computers instead, sometimes in their pajamas, and then they would actually work, and they would work more. So everybody's productivity went up, but their exhaustion levels also went up with it. Their feeling of being overworked, workaholicism started to really ramp up during that period, and people started to just connect so much into their work in a way that it was very, very difficult to unplug. And then now people are back commuting or taking vacations. And then this experience and the sensation of constant overwork has just gotten really vast and really deep. And it can be very difficult to start to extricate yourself from these tentacles of, difficulty, of challenge, of this work that's constant, and having work be the primary thing over everything. And then the cost to this overwork can be super big, super tremendous. It can be coming in the face of not moving your body very much. It can come in where you're not really spending quality time with your partner or with your family because you're always thinking about work. So even if you're setting the time aside to actually do stuff with your family, you're still thinking about your work all of the time. So that's another piece that comes into play. You might actually technically, be a master at boundaries in terms of like, I'm off work. I don't work at night, but where is also your mind? And that is another place where I find my women really struggle, that they're, maybe they're saying, okay, yeah, I'm spending the weekend with my family, but I'm spending that whole time really thinking about my projects, thinking about my work, not being present, not being very grounded. And then there's still that kind of cost, which we don't always take into account. We don't always remember. But yeah, so just looking for all of these places where boundaries at work in particular can be really challenging. And so if you're a workaholic or someone who tends to overwork a lot, and if you're on top of that a perfectionist, what I'm going to share with you is really for you. And even for those of you who've done a really good job with your boundaries, and you might even consider yourself fairly masterful around your boundaries, I find that we all have ways to really start to tweak. And then this next piece might be the piece for you where it can feel a little challenging. Part of the reason we don't want to set boundaries is we don't want to come off as mean. We're like, we don't want other people to think, God, she's so rude, she's so mean, she's so harsh about her boundaries. We may not want to come off as disrespectful. You might feel like, gosh, I'm disrespecting their energy, their time, what they're putting into it as well. Or you might also be like, I'm being so rude. I can't believe I'm saying no. I can't believe I'm being so, firm about whatever this boundary is. And so for a lot of people, that can be a big challenge as well. So we're worried. We can get very worried about what other people think about us setting boundaries. And then that is the real challenge too. It's not just setting the boundary, it's worrying about what's the impact of the boundary as well. And all of that stuff can create just a huge amount of stress. And I've been seeing this compounded in so many of my clients and so many women. And then just in general too, that sensation and that experience of like, I really would love to have a better experience with boundaries. I would really love to be able to set clear boundaries. I would really love to be able to maintain them and to also know if I can do them without really hurting other people's feelings or feeling disrespectful or like I'm drawing a line that's inappropriate. Like, what is the appropriate line for boundaries is actually something that comes up all the time. Like, I don't even know what that looks like. And so I'm so excited that really all of this, everything I've just shared with you, is the reason I came up with a new live series. And the series is truly dedicated to you starting to have a better experience of your own boundaries, to feel like you can actually say no without feeling like there's a lot of confrontation to it, and understanding the key ingredients and the key principles that are going to be at play when you're working on boundaries with other people, and especially with the ones at work, which can feel especially fraught. Like, I don't want to be disappointing my boss. I don't want to actually feel like I'm not living up to the standards that other people have for me. And this series that I've created is next level. It's the first time I've ever done this one. It's brand new, and it's going to be tons of content that I typically only really share with my clients who pay me lots of money for them to have access to these resources, because I feel like it's so needed in the world, that so many people are struggling over and over again with their boundaries and they want to do it. And this is truly the next level. And this series, which is called Transform Your Relationship with Boundaries at Work Without Coming Off as Mean, Disrespectful, or Rude, is truly designed to help you start to say, okay, how do I start to build in some trust with myself so that I can set the boundaries? How do I start to release previous experiences that were challenging for me around boundaries? How do I start to come into clarity around what my boundaries are? And then what do those boundaries create and provide for me so that I can start to actually be in some purposeful action in my life? Because that is one of the big costs of boundaries that we don't even see, is that we don't have enough space and time to do the things that matter to us, to start to step into purpose and to step into an aligned life that is meaningful, that is expansive, that feels really spacious. And when you start to create, the boundaries is that first layer that we're going to address for how do you start to step into all those other pieces. And really, through my clear calling methodology, which is a 4-part methodology, we're looking at how boundaries intersects in all of these places for unbreakable trust, to release stubborn blocks, to come into crystal clarity so you can have purposeful action be what's driving you every day. So I'm so excited to share this series. For those of you who are jumping in, this series is totally free. The link is in the box. Click it, grab it, and then also hit like or subscribe and let me know if you have any questions. And also if any of this resonated, and if you're struggling with something and you're wanting to know if I addressed it in the series, pop it in the chat and ask the question. I'll let you know. Because really, there's so much that we can cover with boundaries, and we do only have 3 sessions to cover this giant topic, and it is going to be a very expansive way for us to cover a topic that I love so dearly. It's so powerful, and I really cannot wait to share this with all of you. So make sure to grab your seat. We start on September 1. Click the link. There's some really good, fun, free goodies and trainings already available for you as soon as you click the link. So grab your spot, and then I will see you inside. Thank you all so much.